Hello and welcome to the IP Australia podcast. This is our series for small business and startups, and my name is Lisa Cohen. I'm the Director of Public Education here at IP Australia. For those of you who aren't familiar with IP Australia, we are the government agency that administers the intellectual property rights system in Australia, and I really want to thank you for tuning in today. Before we dive into the episode, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land which I'm coming to you from today, which is the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people here in the beautiful ACT. Now, in this episode, we'll be discussing the benefits a registered trademark can bring to your business. And I'm lucky to have two of IP Australia's subject matter experts on trademarks. I've got Simon dialing in from Melbourne, and I've got Brooke joining us here in the studio in Canberra. So let's get started. I'm delighted to introduce my panel today. Joining me are Simon, Gough and Brooke Larnach. Now, Simon, you're a trademark examiner with a subject matter expertise in classification, as well as being a specialist examiner in wine and non-Roman character trademarks. And Brooke, a recent promotion, I understand, very deserved, and a senior examiner. You've also been coaching a team and leading a team of junior examiners, helping them learn their stuff. So really, really good subject matter expertise in all things trademarks. So I'm delighted to welcome you both to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here.
And honestly, it's a privilege to have such experienced subject matter experts on hand. So for our listeners today, we're going to dive straight in. And Simon, I'm going to hit you with the hard question right up front. Could you please explain what a trademark is?
Absolutely. So a trademark is essentially how you identify the goods and services provided by your business. It defines what you do and gives your customers an easy way to recognize your products and services. It's how you differentiate yourself from other providers of the same kinds of things. So a trademark should be something distinctive and unique to identify your business.
So I guess we're talking about logos or brands. And I'm just thinking about when you go to the supermarket shelf and you're looking at something and there's 35 different iterations of it. You know what your favourite thing is. So you go looking for the trademark to identify it.
Yeah. So trademarks assist customers to differentiate products and services from those of your competitors, helping you stand out in a busy marketplace. But they're not just brand names and logos. A trademark can be your corporate colours, a jingle in an advertisement, or even your business name painted on the side of a truck or signage and packaging. They're used on so many things around you, such as the phone in your pocket, the shoes on your feet, the badge on your car, or even your favourite soft drink or wine in the fridge.
So trademarks are everywhere, and I'm sure that with all our listeners sitting out there, they all have favourite brands, as we all do, whether we're buying a new phone or if we're buying a new car. And I think that most people are familiar with the term trademark. It's a pretty well-known term, but today we're talking particularly about a registered trademark. So Brooke, could you please tell our listeners how a registered trademark differs from a trademark?
Absolutely. It is a really important distinction. But as Simon said, as soon as a business uses a brand or other sign that distinguishes their products or services from anyone else's, they could be using a trademark. So it's any sign that represents you as the source of goods or services to your customers. A registered trademark, on the other hand, is a trademark that has been officially applied for and registered with IP Australia. It does provide stronger legal protections and some exclusive rights that a regular or unregistered trademark would not.
Thank you, Brooke. And for our listeners, we will go into the difference in protections that a registered trademark will give you. But I just want to explore a little bit more. Sometimes you can see a logo or a brand name and it might have a little TM. Does that mean that it's a registered trademark?
Possibly. The short answer is that you don't need to have a registration to use the TM symbol to indicate you're using something as a trademark. However, only a registered trademark can use the registered symbol, and that's the R in a circle.
That's really interesting. So for our listeners, if you see a brand name or a logo that has the R in the circle next to it, that's confirmation that that is a registered trademark and has the associated protections. Whereas a TM might mean that they have a trademark, or might, of course, be an indication that they're intending on applying for a trademark, or might just mean that they're just indicating to their consumers that that is a trademark that they work with. So if our customers chose to, could they use TM and then apply for a registration and then change it to the R if that registration is granted?
That's right. When you have a registered right, you can choose to use either of the symbols. It's just that you can only use the R symbol when you have that registered right.
That's perfect. Thanks, Simon. And if any of our listeners are interested in a little bit more information about that, don't hesitate to go to our website. We've got some links in the show notes that will take you exactly to the place you need to be to find out more. Now, Brooke, some of our listeners might know about other types of registered IP rights because trademarks isn't the only one. How does a trademark, though, a registered trademark, differ from other registered IP rights?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a common sort of misconception around some of those differences. A trademark won't protect how an invention works. That would actually be a patent, or maybe a method of manufacture and things like that fit under that category. They also don't protect the unique visual appearance of a product. That would be a design right. Another thing to point out is that a trademark does not give a person or a business literal ownership over a word or a sign, just the exclusive right to use it as a commercial identifier in relation to specific goods or services. So a trademark is about protecting brands and a business's reputation and goodwill in that brand, but it can also help to ensure consumers aren't confused or misled about the source of any goods or services that they might be interested in.
So if you hear about a brand that's got a great reputation and you want to buy that brand, you look for the colour or the logo
100%.
or whatever the elements of that brand's personality are, and that's what you want to buy.
Absolutely.
And you want to be backed up. You want to know that what you're buying is credible.
It's really important that consumers are able to recognise those sorts of things. It's really important.
Thank you. Well, as a consumer, I'm grateful not to be confused. So that's fantastic. But what are some of the benefits for our listeners in having a registered trademark?
A registered trademark is a valuable business asset and it can provide you with a really great competitive advantage. It gives you exclusive rights to use, to license, or even sell your trademark. And it does provide legal protection against infringement. So it can help to prevent competitors from using something which is confusingly similar to your trademark that could otherwise confuse consumers or even dilute your brand's identity, which you'd want to avoid.
Oh, you want to avoid that.
Absolutely.
It's hard enough to build it up.
Absolutely. And that's central to the trademark system. But something a lot of people might not be aware of, a registered trademark can also be used in cooperation with the Australian Border Force Agency to stop counterfeit goods from entering Australia.
Wow.
So that's something I'd encourage people to look into. A trademark can also be a valuable marketing tool because its value can increase with the success of your business. But trademarks are often the most valuable asset that a business does own. It's also renewable indefinitely in Australia. Registration lasts for 10 years and you can keep renewing it as long as you continue to use it and you pay the renewal fee.
I just think that that's so interesting, and that registrability indefinitely, that's just an extraordinary benefit, isn't it? You can understand why companies continue to invest in their trademarks.
The one thing I will say there is that is one of the big differences between the different types of IP rights. Even copyright, which can last for a really long period of time, doesn't really hold a candle to how long you can have a trademark registered for.
Thanks so much, Brooke. I'm really interested in giving the listeners some examples of registered trademarks. So, Simon, you were talking earlier about some of the trademarks that you recognised. Would you share with your listeners, please?
Yeah. So there's all kinds of great examples of how companies use registered TMs, and names and logos are probably the ones that come to mind the most. But registered trademark rights that are really distinctive in the marketplace include things like the Nike swoosh logo. Now, that's a registered trademark and it prevents others from using a similar design. Cadbury has a trademark for a specific shade of purple registered, which ensures that no other chocolate company can use that shade of purple. There's also the unique shape of a Coca-Cola bottle. That's a registered trademark which distinguishes it from other beverage products in the marketplace. And these are great examples of how simple, distinctive things, images like that swoosh logo, can become iconic and help you to stand out amongst your competitors in the minds and recollection of consumers.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. And Brooke, you were talking earlier about design right and trademark, that overlap there. And I guess that shape of the Coca-Cola bottle is a really good example of a shape that could be registered as a trademark. And who doesn't recognise the Cadbury purple when you get to that supermarket shelf and go straight for you?
Yeah, I know exactly which product I'm reaching out for. That's for sure.
We know exactly what we want when we get there. Thanks, Simon. And just to go back to your point about the swoosh or the tick for Nike, you're right. Such a simple graphic, but it now carries such an enormous amount of credibility, and it speaks to you. As soon as you see that logo, you know exactly what to expect from that product. It carries that great brand recognition. I'll get back to the technicalities of it. So, look, we often hear that businesses think that registering their business name gives them exclusive rights to their name and that they're protected. But, Brooke, you were telling me earlier that's actually not right. So what's the difference between registering the business name and registering the trademark?
Yeah, so while there are some protections under common law, you don't have exclusive rights to the commercial use of a trademark that a registered trademark will give you. So registering a business name doesn't really mean that you can prevent other people from using something that's confusingly similar, for example, in relation to similar goods or services. You can't really use it to sort of protect your name or logo for those goods or services that you offer. Without registering a trademark in respect of your business name or other brands or logos or signs that you use, your protection would be limited. So defending it could be legally complicated and pretty expensive.
Gosh, that's interesting. And I'm sure our listeners are grateful for that distinction between registering the business name and the registering of a trademark. Now, I was just thinking when we were having that chat before, what about domain names and social media handles or social media accounts when you want to have your brand there? Does the same thing apply?
Yeah, same sort of thing, really. While they can be trademarks, so you can certainly use a trademark as a domain name or a social media handle. And if you do have that registered, there might be some protection there. If it's not actually registered and you're using something as a domain name or a social media handle, it doesn't automatically give you that sort of trademark protection or recourse to those sorts of protections. Mm-hmm. So we do recommend securing a business name, trademark, domain names, and any social media handles as early as you can. Just note, IP Australia doesn't actually handle these kinds of registrations. I believe there will be some information provided, but there are particular rules in Australia for how domain registrations work. And I will say that having a registered trademark can help you to get or maintain a registered domain name and to help ensure that you have the legitimate rights to own that domain as well.
Having the exclusivity granted
100%.
to you by the registered trademark gives you that benefit. And we will pop some information about domain names and company names registration thereof into the show notes. There's some links in there. So for our listeners, don't hesitate to get in there and have a good look. And I really, based on all of the conversations that I've had with all the small businesses we talk to, I'm really encouraging everyone to get your trademark, get your business name, get your domain names, get your social media handles as closely together as you can at the same time and as early as possible in your business journey. Now, we've been talking about registered trademark, and I guess it's important for us to let the listeners know that that's an Australian protection. So, Brooke, if someone wants to sell internationally, will their registered Australian trademark protect them overseas?
The short answer would be no. So trademarks protection in Australia is based on Australia's laws and jurisdictions, so it's only protectable here in Australia. If you are thinking about expanding overseas or you do want to make sure that you are protected in other countries, you would have to look into getting a registration in those individual countries you want to trade in. They will have their own rules and potentially you would need to file in individually with those offices as well. But in Australia, there is actually a more streamlined way to do this. We are a part of the Madrid system, so we've got a lot of good information on our website if you're considering that as an option for expanding your rights, if you do want to look at that internationally.
Thanks, Brooke. Now, Simon, I'm going to come back and ask you a question. Should every business register a trademark?
Not a very satisfying answer, but it really depends. In highly competitive industries, a registered trademark can be a great tool to help the business stand out and prevent competitors from using similar branding. That being said, it's always a good idea to seek professional advice, such as from an IP rights attorney or a business consultant, to determine whether a trademark is right for your circumstances. If you have a unique name, a logo or tagline that clearly distinguishes your products or services from others in the market, registering as a trademark can offer strong protection, and this can help protect your brand and prevent others from using similar branding. But for small local businesses that operate in a limited area, like a neighborhood fish and chip shop, a registered trademark might not make sense for you. But if you're planning to expand nationally or internationally as a chain of takeaways, or you want to stop others from using a sign your customers associate with your business specifically, a registered trademark could be a smart move.
I think it's really important that at this point we let our listeners know we're here to help inform and educate you about the benefits and the points about trademarks. We're not trying to sell you trademark registration. We want to make sure that you understand the risks of not having a registered trademark and the benefits that having one can bring to your business. So we really want you to be able to make an informed decision about that. Simon, that's all incredibly helpful. Thank you. And I guess the other thing that we could say to our listeners is, if you're going to expand, back yourself. The cost of investing in a trademark will help your business as it grows. So if you are thinking of expanding, really consider the trademark. Another thing our listeners are probably interested in understanding, Simon, is if their business is already set up and running, is it too late to apply for a trademark?
So ideally, you should file for a trademark as early as possible, preferably when you're developing a business strategy and before launching a product or service. And that ensures your brand is protected from the outset and helps prevent potential infringement issues by identifying any confusingly similar trademarks. But it's never too late to apply for a trademark. You can be in business for years and then apply for a trademark that you have been using for years at that point.
That's interesting. So as long as no one else has registered a trademark that might be similar already in the same sort of business area, it's still a good idea to search. And we've got some things that people can do, haven't we, to research whether their trademark might be eligible for registration. So what are some of the things our listeners could consider before they decide whether they want to apply for a registered trademark or not?
One of the most important preliminary considerations that you should make is to figure out whether someone else has already got that trademark registered. IP Australia offers a suite of tools to assist in that regard. So you can use TM Checker, which is a free tool developed by IP Australia, and it's designed to help those who may not typically engage with the IP system figure out where they're standing. TM Checker helps you see if your desired trademark is distinctive and whether it's already registered. It'll give you an early indication of potential issues in the proposed classes of goods and services you want to protect. And from there, it's a simple process to complete your application to apply to register a text or logo trademark. So it provides you with a bit of head start in the IP rights application process. What you should do if you're going down that path is to take care to identify all of the unique aspects of your brand that may need protection. We've got a variety of case studies on the IP Australia website where this was an important step for comprehensive IP protection, and I really recommend checking those out.
Thanks, Simon. So I guess when you're talking about all the sort of elements of the brand, it might be a logo, it might be a tagline, it might be a colour, it might be all three things, could be anything. So make sure that you protect all of those elements. Now, Simon and Brooke, you have both spoken a little bit about distinctiveness a couple of times in this episode. So what do you mean by a distinctive trademark?
Distinctiveness is really at the heart of what a trademark is supposed to be and what it does. So a trademark is something that distinguishes your goods or services from other people's. So it's a way to differentiate your brand. Now, if it is something that other people would have a legitimate need or desire to use in relation to any particular goods or services, that can be a problem for the trademark being registered at face value. It is an important step. We understand that everybody loves a trademark that is suggestive of what they do and it has some sort of relationship to what they do. You can go a little bit too close to the sun, I guess, and sometimes that can be a bit problematic. But in some of the case studies that we've looked at, it's really interesting to note that on the face of it, applying for a colour in respect of chocolate, Cadbury went through a process to get that trademark registered. And so they were able to demonstrate that that trademark was distinctive of their brand and that people recognised it. When you're thinking of your trademarks, it is a good idea to think of something that is unique and distinctive to your brand so that you do stand out from your competitors. But we also understand that, sometimes people want something that's describes a little bit or at least comes close to describing what they do. If there are problems with the distinctiveness of a trademark, that can be resolved in examination as well. So it's not the end of the road, but it's definitely something to think about.
I just wanted to ask, a generic name, a word like Apple. If I was going to sell apples, so it's a pretty generic name for apples, but we know that Apple is also the name of a a company that doesn't sell apples.
Yeah, absolutely. So context is everything. So when you're looking at particular goods and services, like you said, in that particular context of apple for apples, that's probably about as generic as a trademark could get. But certainly when it's applied to other things that don't really have much to do with apples or apple flavouring or anything like that, then you're probably going to have a much higher chance of success there. So yeah, things like OJ for orange juice or just orange juice for orange juice. So think about all the ways that things are normally described, and as a general rule, you can try to avoid those sorts of things.
Thanks, Brooke. And thank you, Simon, for your patience. You're just a delight. Let me hand back to you now to talk about distinctiveness.
Yeah. As Brooke said, the biggest question mark that will often come in a trademark under examination is there a likelihood someone else is going to honestly desire to use that trademark for its ordinary meaning? So that means if we're talking specifically about fruit juices, then someone applying for words apple juice or the world's best juice, they're going to face difficulties because those words are likely going to be honestly desired by other people to describe those goods.
So it's about being unique and not using words that other people who work in the same industry, or we'll talk of the correct language, goods and services class, might need to use. Thank you. That's really great. And you talked earlier too about how you could trademark just one element of your brand, or you could trademark a number of different elements. And I was wondering, Simon, if you could talk to our listeners about those different brand elements and how other organisations have managed that?
Yeah, so there's no practical limit on the number of trademarks that a business or individual can hold. Many businesses hold entire suites of trademarks numbering in the thousands, depending on the level of business. Some examples that we feature on the IP Australia website are Huskee, for example. They have registered trademarks for all of their brand names, including Huskee, Huskee Cup, Huskee Swap, as well as the logos. And this comprehensive protection covers their use of coffee cups and specific design features of their branding. Another example is Soap de Villa. They ensured their brand had the comprehensive protection by selecting the appropriate classes for their business and obtaining necessary protection for planned future products and services.
Part of that back yourself for growth that we were talking about.
Simon made a really good point there, where you can consider what you are planning to do in the near future as well. So a trademark is something used or intended to be used. So you can think a little bit more expansively than what you're doing right now, and you can think about what you might want to be doing in the foreseeable future.
So if you have plans for world domination, go big. Yeah.
Doesn't everyone?
Yes. We'd all like to. So both of you, actually, Simon and Brooke, you've both talked a little bit about goods and services and classes, as we've come to that probably quite late in the chat today. But I'm keen, and I'm sure our listeners are keen to understand, what do we mean when we talk about classes of goods and services?
Yes. So every trademark application needs to not only include the trademark or sign that is being sought to protect, but also what goods and services that sign is being used directly in respect of. IP Australia uses a classification system that is an international standard where all goods and services that could theoretically be offered by a trader can fall into one of 45 classes. And you would then, in applying for a trademark, select which goods and services are relevant to your trademark protection.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you. So I know there's a whole lot of other things that our listeners probably want to know. So I would like you to indulge me with a set of rapid fire Q&A. How do you both feel about that?
Absolutely.
Are you ready? Bring it on. I love it. Okay, so Brooke, cost is a big factor for small business. What can people expect to pay for a registered trademark?
They start from $250 for 10 years per class for a standard application directly with IP Australia. If you are a first-time applicant, we do recommend the guided application process, which does start from $330 for 10 years, but it does give you access to that ability to change your trademark or your goods and services if you need to. That trademark timeframes and fees is certainly on our website.
Fantastic. Thank you. Now, Simon, if one of our listeners wants to apply for a trademark, what is the process?
So it takes around 7 months from start to finish. That is from when you file to when your trademark is fully registered. After you apply, it'll take around 8 to 12 weeks for a trademarks examiner to perform your examination. If it's accepted at that stage, it will later be published in the official Journal of Trademarks with a 2-month opposition period where others can challenge that registration.
Great, thank you. So the application and examination part of the process is fairly rapid, I think, 8 to 12 weeks. It's then the legislative periods of waiting and opposition periods that stretch it out. Can they still use that trademark before it's granted formally?
Yes, but it's important to do a proper search first. If your idea is unique, you're more likely to get registered without issues, and the TM Checker service can help with that.
Our listeners are probably saying, yeah, righto. You've talked about unique and distinctiveness and TM Checker. And look, we are going to be repetitive with some of the information because it's really important and it's going to give you the best chance to get your trademark registered if you can follow some of the tips and tricks. Now, Brooke, can anybody apply for a trademark? Like, can you apply yourself online?
Absolutely. So anyone can go online and apply directly through our website. Or if you do prefer to reach out and get some help, you can engage an IP professional like a trademarks attorney. Just keep in mind that they will charge their own fees. Unfortunately, IP Australia can't really give you that professional or legal advice, but certainly anyone can apply online.
Yeah, and I think if any of our listeners wanted advice, legal advice that is particular to their situation, what's the best way forward?
IP Australia's website does include some information about acquiring an attorney. There is actually a registration board.
Yeah, the Trans-Tasman IP Attorneys Board.
Thank you. I was thinking of the acronym.
We also have on our website things to think about before you talk to your attorney. So a little bit of a checklist of some of the background information that would be very helpful for your attorney when you turn up, that, you will be quite informed about the process before you talk to them. So hop online and have a look at that as well. If you choose to apply directly with us, you just hop onto the website and there's some guidance there. There's a couple of different ways that you can do it. So please don't hesitate to give us a call to find out which might be the best way for you. And the TM Checker tool we were talking about helps identify some early potential issues.
Yeah, absolutely. So TM Checker is the guided application process and it will help identify any potential issues early. It lets you make changes before locking in your application. So that flexibility can be great if you're still refining your trademarks and what it is you actually want to apply for.
Thanks, Brooke. What if our listeners aren't exactly sure what their logo would look like? They've had a look around, they've made an initial design, they think that that's the one they want to go with, but once they check, they see that there are others that might be similar. If they decide to go ahead and try to register using TM Checker, is there any opportunity for them to change that or refine it if it's too similar?
Yeah, so if they do take that next step through the TM Checker process, they will have an opportunity for that trademark to be assessed by an examiner, and then the examiner will let them know if there are any issues with it. At that point, they will have the option to amend their trademark. If they just go ahead and file a standard application with IP Australia, so they don't use that TM Checker process, it's a little bit more set in stone. So typically, once the trademark has been applied for, you can't really make substantial changes to it through that way. If you do follow TM Checker, though, yeah, there will be an opportunity to look at amendments.
That's awesome. Thank you. I was just thinking, you and Simon have been pretty explicit about the fact that you should do a lot of checking before you make up your logo or want to trademark your brand. What are some of the ways that people can check, not just using the TM Checker, but as they're designing their brand, what are some of the things that they can do to have a look at what's available and what they might do?
Google is definitely your friend, and I would recommend checking through your normal search engines and things like that. You can also look in overseas registers for similar sort of brands. If you do sort of get that indication that there's something out there internationally, that's something that could indicate you might have an issue, but that is a good way to have a look. Definitely Google it, I would say.
Trademarks are a leading indicator from an economic perspective of growth. So we know that a lot of trademarks come from international organisations who are looking to expand their business into, Southeast Asia and Australia and New Zealand. So keeping an eye on those international registers, just to make sure that you're not going to be finding a competitor down the track is probably a great idea. So thank you for that. Now, let's move on and think about some of the common mistakes people should avoid. My rapid-fire Q&A has turned into more of a chat, but Simon, what are some of the common mistakes that you recommend people should try and avoid?
Beating a bit of a dead horse here, but not searching thoroughly is one of the biggest mistakes that people can make when they're filing trademark rights. So you should always make sure you've thoroughly checked existing trademark rights on the Australian Register. Do internet searches, as Brooke suggested. And if you're planning on expanding overseas, it can be valuable to look at international trademark databases in the jurisdictions that you're interested in expanding into.
And they're all free, aren't they? You just hop on, you can just go onto your search engine, have a look for them, and they're free to search, so there's no charge with that.
I think WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organisation, also maintains a register of applications that have come through them as well.
Oh, that's a great recommendation. Now, Simon, what's another mistake?
Yeah, so also, as we've touched on before, a big mistake is picking the wrong class of goods and services. So there are 45 classes. Goods are classes 1 through 34, and services are classes 35 through 45. And they cover anything and everything that you could possibly trade in. So clothing is class 25, health services are class 44. So going into your application, use the classification search tool to identify the right classes that are appropriate for what your business is trading in the marketplace.
Yeah, so there's quite a weight of responsibility on the business that wants to register a trademark. You need to do your homework. You need to do the searching. You need to make sure you know what classes you want to apply in. You need to make sure that a registered trademark is the correct right, is the right to get, that you don't need a patent or a design right.
Really pays to think ahead. As Brooke mentioned earlier, once your trademark is published on the Australian Registry of Trademarks, you can't make substantial changes to it that would impact its scope of protection. So you can't add new classes. You can't change the logo you've applied for. So it's really important to read the information available on our website, because it's there to help you avoid these kind of pitfalls. Because if you do want to go back and add another class or change your logo, that's a new application with a new fee and filing costs.
And you were mentioning earlier, Brooke, that some people assume that their trademark is registered just once they put in the application. But that's not true, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So just because you have filed your application doesn't actually mean that it's registered. You might receive correspondence from IP Australia with your online services account, so it's really important to keep track of that and understand what part of the process your application is up to. We'll let you know when it passes those milestones, when it's being advertised for opposition, but it still needs to pass through those timeframes that Simon mentioned before. So it is 7-ish months from start to finish. You will get information from us fairly early on, but then there might be large periods of time where you won't hear from us. So you can always check that online, or you can have a look at your account as well.
Yeah, or give us a call.
Or give us a call, absolutely.
If you're really worried.
Yeah.
So, look, that's a fantastic overview. And I guess the last thing we'll cover off on today is if someone has gone ahead and they've registered their trademark and they find that someone else in the market is using their trademark illegally, we call that infringing on your trademark. What are some of the things that they might be able to do to enforce their registered trademark?
The first thing I'll say there is that IP Australia are not the trademarks police. So we don't take legal action on anyone's behalf to protect from infringement. However, if a competitor does infringe on your trademark, or you reasonably believe that they are infringing on your trademark, you do have the right to take legal action to potentially stop that infringement and even claim damages through a court. So one of the ways you can take legal action is by, identifying that you do own a trademark, such as through a cease and desist letter to the infringer, informing them that you have registered rights and asking them to stop what they're doing. I would always say seek legal advice before proceeding with anything like that, with contacting another party, but certainly that's within your rights to do if you do have a registered trademark. IP Australia does provide a lot of resources on our website for, business owners to consider in relation to enforcing their rights. Definitely strongly suggest checking out the website if you'd like some more information there.
Yeah, it's really important to monitor for infringement to preserve your legal rights and protect your brand's reputation. Performing regular checks can help prevent potential infringes and enhance your business's commercial value. Ultimately, it's the trademark owner's responsibility to detect infringements promptly and take necessary legal action to defend their rights.
Simon and Brooke, honestly, I have learned so much today, and I know that our listeners will be equally well informed. Thank you so much for joining us on this session. I think there's so much really great information in it. So Brooke, Simon, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been a delight. And for our listeners, thanks so much for joining us. Hope to see you at the next podcast, which is a deeper dive into patents. And all the best. Cheers. Well, we've covered quite a bit today. I hope it's helped you feel more confident about getting started with registered trademarks. Just a quick note, the content shared in this podcast is not intended to be taken as legal, business or other professional advice.